Welcome to Homesroom. Just like homeroom, we start off our day getting together with our homies, swapping stories, even a little kiss and tell action. This podcast contains language not suitable for younger listeners, topics about sex and mental health. Discretion is advised. Our views are our own. Let class begin.
Hello, welcome to Homesroom in this very special Valentine's Day Sending Love Your Way episode. See what I did there? I rhymed, Kaitlin. How do you feel about that?
I love it. You know, sometimes it feels forced, but sometimes it comes organically, and you are just the best at it, you know?
I don't know about
I'm
that,
excited about this episode. I don't personally have a ton of well, let's do a proper introduction. This is our Valentine's Day episode. So happy Valentine's Day, homies. We adore you, love you. Happy Valentine's Day. We're doing a weird alternate take on it, though, where we are talking about worst first dates. I shared a Reddit thread with Matt where people are very bravely, publicly coming forward with their awful first date stories. I don't have a personal, maybe I have one awful first date story. But I figured we could jump into it and share our first date stories with our husband, my husband, and your wife, Courtney. I don't know if you'd love to share that or not. But for me, the fun first date stories are the ones that stick. So I didn't know if you wanted to just jump in and share us. How did you meet Courtney? And first of all, happy Valentine's Day, Court. We love a supportive significant other, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about your first date with your wife.
I like how I had a choice in that, and then all of a sudden I did not have a choice in that.
Sorry, by the way. Oops.
I mean, we went to see The Fountain, which was a terrible... I feel like we talked about this before, but we went to see The Fountain, which was... We both worked at the movie theater, so like going to see movies was like clearly a thing that we loved doing as employees there. But we went to go... We were secret for a while because we worked together and we didn't... Like all the other people that worked there that dated each other, it was always drama filled, so we kind of wanted to keep it low key. So we had been on like dates, I guess, but mostly it was just like hanging out. So it was like our first, like, which is why, like, to me it's like not fuzzy, but like not as memorable because it was just the first time we were able to go out and like go do something where we weren't worried about being seen. So like we went to go see The Fountain, and that movie was super trippy, and I think both of us were just so like eager to be able to like sit in a movie theater together that like I don't know. It was good. And then I can't for the life of me remember what happened after we watched the movie because that was 17, 18 years ago now. And it's a little fuzzy. I remember so many other random dates and things that we've been on bits and pieces wise, but that one doesn't really like resonate. I remember the first time we hung out because it was like high school butterfly feelings more than the first time we went on a date. So we hung out
cute.
a lot.
Oh, throwback to the butterflies, man. Yeah. When you're over 10 years in a relationship, it's hard to remember those days, but I appreciate you pointing those out because I definitely had those with my husband. So my first date with my husband, we met in college. Our parents lived about 20 minutes like apart from each other, but we would have never met apart from this thing called Greek Week back in college. My sorority and his fraternity were paired together for Greek Week. It's a whole ordeal, whatever. The after party of Greek Week, we met in a dark basement of a frat house. The very first picture that I have of him and I together is from that night where he is dressed up like a pirate. And I'm so look forward to the day where I get to explain to our children when mommy met daddy was dressed up like a pirate. But that was the theme for Greek Week. We were pirates of the Caribbean, whatever. So I randomly take a picture of him with two of my other sorority sisters who I later asked, did you ever know, like, did you know who he was? They said, no, we were, partying and just wanted to take a picture. So then he says, oh, well, I need to take a picture with you because you're taking the picture. I want to take a picture with you too. He later tells me years down the road that he intentionally had me take a picture with my phone so that immediately after he could turn around and say, oh, well, I need your number so that you can send me this picture. So I gave him my number. And then also in the same conversation years down the road, he says, I woke up on the couch in my frat house, hung over as shit the next morning, checked my text messages and just saw that a random number had sent me this picture of the two of us and went, yes, I got her number.
I love it.
That was how we met. A couple weeks after that, we went out on our first date. Our first date was also seeing a movie together. We went and saw Captain America, Winter Soldier. After that, we went to half-price appetizers at Applebee's, where the only thing I really vividly remember was, first of all, I got the pretzel sticks and the beer cheese. If you're not going to Applebee's and getting half-price apps and you're not getting the pretzel sticks with beer cheese, what is wrong with you? They're so delicious. But we were at Applebee's, and another one of his fraternity brothers was at the Applebee's. And sneakily, years down the road, I found out, sneakily took a picture of me and my husband, now husband, sitting at this table together and posted it on their like group chat with their whole fraternity and said like, oh, Ding's out trying to woo a girl or something, where like it was such a weird thing for him to be out on a date with a girl because he was like such a player or whatever the hell back in college, whatever. So that was the first date I had with my husband. And I guess, as the kids say, the rest is history. That was over 10 years ago. Not a terrible first date. Probably. Ooh, okay. Only other weird first date story I have is the same date. I turn my phone off when we're in the movie theater. I turn my phone back on as we're walking out of the theater and we're on our way to Applebee's for half price apps. As soon as I turn my phone on, I see a voicemail from, fun fact to everybody, I was super plugged into church in these days. Very openly, loudly Christian. Maybe that's a topic we can dive into in a different episode. But my mentor from church leaves me a voicemail and a text message that says, call me as soon as you can. I said, okay. I think it's like an emergency or like she had some health problems. I was like, oh my God, she's like back in the hospital or whatever. So as soon as we're out of the movie theater, I'm like, I'm so sorry. I need to take this call. We're walking from the movie theater. He's like holding the car door open for me. And I'm on the phone with this mentor from church. She goes, I just met this super Christian man who's a Walmart cash register guy. And I think that you guys would be so cute together. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm literally on a first date with a guy that's like really fucking hot right now. So I'm going to call you back later. And he's like, oh my gosh, you look like you're freaked out over it. I was like, I'm so sorry. It's my mentor from church is trying to hook me up with like this really strong Christian guy that she met or whatever. And it was like the most awkward thing because I'm like, I'm really enjoying my date with you. I don't want you to think that I'm like playing matchmaker with, it was a very random out of left field call that I got from her. And it was very awkward and weird. Things didn't work out with the Walmart cash register guy. Obviously, I married the guy that was taking me to half price apps and Applebee's. I'm a very simple woman, but
I love that.
That's probably the most awkward thing that I have to say about a first date. So
fair. I just want to say, I don't know if it's necessarily because we were doing the Valentine's Day episode and you were like dressed up a little bit, but I saw a meme earlier, and like I said, it could be wrong, but I saw a meme earlier that was like, you know, you're getting older when it's hard to keep your dress t-shirts and your regular t-shirts separate. And this is one of my like, I love this shirt, and this is
great
a shirt
movie.
This is the shirt I would wear on a first date, just to see whether the person is like, oh, you're wearing that.
If you are just listening, Matt is wearing a bomb as hell Starship Troopers t-shirt, which is very on brand for you. Can I just say,
gift from my wife. So yeah, no, I love this shirt, but like most importantly, it's like, if you know what this is, we can be friends. If you don't know what this is, then like, I probably wouldn't enjoy talking to you because it's a
But
good movie.
if you've also never seen the movie, please go revisit and give us your feedback, because we always love feedback from our friends, family, homies here at Homesroom.
I'm gonna put an asterisk next to that one. This is one of my favorite movies from when I was a kid. And if you come for this movie, we might be some fisticuffs. I don't know.
Well, that just means that you need to have a creative, articulable argument about why it's such a great movie. Okay.
Johnny Rico was the best, and I don't want to hear nothing else but. Okay.
I'm just saying, Matt, we've said several times over, we welcome all kinds of feedback. If you haven't watched Starship Troopers, if you do check it out and you don't happen to like it, you better come prepared and come the fuck ready, because Matt's ready to throw punches. Like, you better get them dukes up if that's something that you're not enjoying. So,
yeah. All right.
We have our Reddit thread. Can you please share with us the first one that you picked out that was an awful first date story? And let me also just say thank you so much to our anonymous Reddit poster friends who have put themselves out there for our entertainment and our enjoyment, because some of these that I specifically picked out sound awful, Matt.
Yeah. So I picked ones that made me laugh more than like anything else or reminded me of something. And given the news that we were all sitting with, Mr. Matthew Perry passing away recently, and obviously the legacy that is Friends and all of that, like, this one reminds me of an episode of Friends, so it had to make its way on here. And just an aside to this, the main character from the books that I wrote was almost patterned after or inspired by Chandler, because it was a guy that could be anybody. It was a guy that could be your best friend, or could have been somebody that you knew and lost touch with, and that was the whole goal, was like that guy. So that actor and that character meant a lot to me. So the fact that this one reminds me of an episode of Friends is hilarious. It doesn't have to do with Chandler, however. The Friends callback will be noticeable. So this one says, went over to her place to hang out. My God, what a mess. And the smell. It was like a pig died and passed gas. ... And I was just like, oh my God, that's it. That's the extent of it. And all I could think of is that episode of Friends where Ross went over to Rebecca Romaine's house and was in the filth, and they were like, you're just gonna have to do it in the filth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I thought of. And I couldn't imagine bringing somebody over to your house the first time for a first date, and that's a, hey, let's kick it outside, maybe. I don't know.
Do you think that's a planned event, though? Like, maybe the person that you're out on a date with, like, sprung it on you and you don't have time to, like, straighten up or whatever? Or is it like, the kids call it delulu. I call it delusional because I'm older than the kids these days. But like a delusional or like absent from it, where like maybe that's how they grew up and they like just like think that that's normal or something. Because
I think that could be part of it. Yeah.
Because let me tell you, Matt, I dated my husband now, lived in a fucking frat house. Okay. Like the bar is on the floor in terms of cleanliness. Like I get it, you know? Mm-hmm. Maybe not. Maybe it's different because it's dudes and it's college guys. But devil's advocate, maybe it's a situation where it's like, oh, well, like he sprung on her. Let's go back to your place. Or maybe she volunteered it and it's like a fun like college experience where it's like you don't understand how abnormal you were being born and raised in a mess until you're in that position where you're like, oh, this is different than how other people were raised, you know?
I could see it both ways, I guess. But I mean, for me, like my just like personal opinion, you know whether like it's like, oh man, I'm gonna bring this person back to my house, or oh man, my house is a mess, and like forewarning, not just like pop over because like whatever, but also like it could be a little bit of like you don't realize how bad, and like you go nose blind to like the smells of your house or whatever. I don't know, maybe, but either way, that's unfortunate for everybody involved. And you know, maybe she found her guy that like didn't care, or maybe she cleaned up her act. I don't know.
Well,
but
not
it sure
invalidating.
Wasn't that guy? Yeah,
not invalidating that experience, because that would absolutely be shocking to me too. So, all right, my first one. Went for drinks. Conversation went well. About an hour in, her phone rings. She picks up and has a full-blown 15-minute argument with her boyfriend. I mean, lying about their relationship status is one thing, but actually taking the call while trying to cheat kind of blew my mind. Same.
Yeah.
I'm sorry? Excuse me? Where do you get the audacity to take that call, field that call, and feel like it's a completely normal social situation to have a full-blown argument with this person can clearly tell it's your boyfriend. What the hell?
Yeah.
That blew my mind. I'm like,
that's unfortunate.
and here's the other thing too. I've been cheated on before. Okay. Like, maybe this is a better story than a worse first date. I had a very toxic ex-boyfriend in high school. Toxic on both sides. We were both emotionally immature. I used to also, the same period of my life where I was very plugged into church. He lived in a house that was like 2 houses down from the church that I attended every Sunday without fail. We had had a fight the night before. It was not uncommon for me to like stop by his house before I went to church on that Sunday to just like say hi or whatever. I decided to stop by his house to apologize and like make nice and all of the super toxic, abusive, whatever the hell. I walk into his room and I see another girl in his bed.
Oh, dang.
Naked as the day she was born,
Oh,
turn the light on, she's in there. And all I say was, I just looked at him and I said, was she good? I hope she was good. And I turned around and walked out. Now, dipshit me back in high school still absolutely the fuck went back to him. Will own that. But that is absolutely insane to me. But that's what I remembered when I was like reading this Reddit post of like, that's insane for a first date for her to answer the phone and have a full-blown conversation with her actual boyfriend. And for him to be able to pick up on context clues and be like, this is her boyfriend. Huh?
Yeah. That's terrible. Unfortunate. But also, hopefully, homie saved himself some time.
Same.
Said, while you're taking this call, I'm going to run to the bathroom. Check's coming. Deuces. Because, yeah.
All right.
Terrible.
What's your next one there, boss?
All right. So, this one is like, I don't know, I could understand it from 2 different perspectives. And as a mantle of professional fence sitter, sitting on this fence I could see why she felt it was okay, but I could also see why this dude was like, what the fuck, nah. So, it says, girl I knew from school and hung out with during lunch breaks wanted to go on a date. I accepted. And her idea of a date was apparently watching a movie at her place while she munched away on an entire bag of cheese and onion chips and a bottle of Coke. Then proceeded to burp and fart loads in my direction. The smell was disgusting, and during the date, she also suddenly bit my hand, quite hard, in fact, and said, now I had a reminder of her and our first date for a while. ...
Absolute roller coaster.
Right? It hit me hard because how long had you guys been hanging out? Because maybe she's just comfortable with you and couldn't separate the like you she hung out with as like a homie and the you she liked as a romantic partner, and you were able to compartmentalize those 2 functions and she wasn't. I don't know how old you were when this happened, so I don't know whether you're, like 19 and she's 19 and kind of immature, doesn't know how things work, or if she grew up with a bunch of boys. I don't have enough context to know whether she was just weird or if she was just like, this should be comfortable, this should be fair. I know you well enough to be completely open, because you know what they say, it's not a relationship until she can fart for the first time in front of you. So, boom. But also,
very true. Very true.
I myself personally have had the experience of somebody fucking biting me and being like, well, now it's a reminder, you'll never forget me. And I was like, what the fuck? And honestly, what I tried to do the math earlier when I was talking to Courtney about this, and like 19, 20 years later, I don't remember her name. I could barely remember what she looks like, but I do remember this bitch leaning over the desk from behind me and biting my shoulder and turning around and looking at her, then my shoulder, and being like, what the fuck, you just bit me. And her response was, yeah, but now you'll always remember me. And I was like, I don't know what, like, and yeah, so I could relate to a lot of this situation.
It wasn't a lie, though.
Yeah,
you might not remember her name, but you do remember her.
Exactly. So this guy probably did remember that date, but for a lot of reasons he didn't want to remember it for. What's your thoughts?
I can see how that's like maybe a kink thing, where like leaving your mark on somebody. But let me tell you, there wasn't a fucking sentence or word that you said that I was like on board with or knew to expect that entire time you were talking about that. I was like, well, okay, it could always be worse. I'm just thankful I don't have that experience. I don't know. For that to be a first date too, the level of comfortability that you have to feel with somebody to do that for the first time is like not something I probably would be able to do myself. So no kink shaming here at Homesroom Podcast, but not our vibe, clearly. All right. So my next one is just a simple sentence. Let me just say this sentence to you, and I just want to hear your immediate thoughts. Okay. She ended the date by asking if my best friend was available.
Oh, God.
Period.
Boom.
The end.
That was hilarious.
That's awful. That is so awful. I feel so bad for whoever that was. And also, how dare you not give us more details? I wanted a full ass fucking story time. Where were you? How well did she know your best friend? Did she only know him in passing because of like Instagram posts? Or like, what's the deal?
So you asked about my first date with Courtney, and I was like kind of vague on why I don't remember what my first date with Courtney was, because our relationship started out in a really, really, really weird way. And this particular one, you would have no idea that is similar to a situation that we were kind of in. But so it's relevant now. It wasn't relevant at the beginning of this, but it's relevant now because you said that. So another girl that worked at the theater, I was supposed to try and chat up for my best friend who had a crush on her. Yeah, and I was notorious for doing that because as I host a fucking podcast, I'm never afraid to talk to anybody. I could walk up to whoever. Like, I am an introvert, but I'm an extroverted introvert. That level of fear is like like a sensation of like I'm alive, I guess. I don't know. So I would always be the one that like would go like talk to random girls for them to be like, hey, my friend thinks you're cute. So I was supposed to talk to her, but then I ended up like having kind of a crush on her after I got to know her. And then shit went as far left as possible. This is a reference that maybe some people will get, maybe some people won't get. Did you ever see that movie Drive with Ryan Gosling? Where he was like this. All right. So you know how like that movie was like, what the fuck am I watching? And then he shotgunned that guy in the face and everybody in the theater is like, oh shit, what am I watching? What happened? This is not what I was expecting. Yeah, it went lefter than that. So it turned out that like she was like, hey, my ex is coming into town. I don't know whether I want to get back with him or not back with him, whatever. So I might have to put this on pause. I'm not sure. I got to make up my mind. At the same time, my best friend had been razzing me the entire time about how like you were supposed to talk to her for me, not hook up with her yourself, you dick. And luckily he found somebody else in that same time frame. So like it was cool. But this girl ended up being roommates with Courtney. So before me and Courtney could hang out, it was like I kind of had a thing with her roommate. My best friend kind of liked her. Then I had to like try and like backpedal and be like, hey, Courtney, I think that you're still an awesome person, even though all this shit went hella left. So, what's up? So I've been on both sides of that story in one situation. Crazy. So yeah, there's that.
You seem like you'd be a great wingman.
Well, thank you. I try. Being a wingman is not an easy task. So to all the here like it's water, but here's to you, wingman. Like it is not easy to be able to go into a situation knowing full well you give zero shits about the outcome except for where your friend is concerned.
Yeah.
And that is really hard to be able to like turn it on in that instant. I remember going out with, friends and just having to fucking deal with like this annoying girl who I do not find attractive, who is like abrasive in all of the ways that like makes me want to gouge my eyes out. But he's back there drooling and I just got to try and get her like warmed up enough so that like he's confident and can step in and I can like start a conversation that I know he's comfortable with and then like roll out of the conversation. And sometimes it does not happen often enough, and sometimes there's not enough shots of Jack in the world. So yeah,
I don't miss those days. And I have come across several TikToks at this point, and I don't know what in the hell I liked for my algorithm to bring these TikToks to my attention as somebody who's like almost 10 years into a long-term relationship. But I see horror stories of people my age or younger who are out and about dating in today's day and age, where it's mostly like apps and meeting online or sliding into DMs and all of those things. And I just sympathize greatly with anyone that has to go out and date in today's day and age, where there have been several like TikToks where I've seen of like first date horror stories, or like one of my favorite rabbit holes to fall down to is I guess on like Hinge or one of the other dating apps, you can send like voice memos on your profile. And people will screen record these voice memos and be like post them on TikTok and be like, this is awful, this is horrible. I've sent some of them to my husband, and both of us just like look at each other and we're like, I'm so thankful I don't have to date in today's day and age, where it's world, like, I'm so out of it. I just feel so old. I know that millennials get a bad rap or whatever, and it's just like this like weird situation where, people meet in different ways or whatever. I don't know. I'm very thankful I met my husband in a dark basement of a frat house almost 10 years ago, and I'm not dealing with all that shit today. And special shout out and props to everybody that has to navigate that. Thoughts and prayers. We adore you. Shout out.
But also, if you got some good stories from doing some like online dating or like modern dating, as I call it, send them in, because I would love to either share them if you're willing for that, but also just like I love hearing those stories because it's so wild. Because the last time I dated, Facebook was just a thing and MySpace was on its way out. So like I have not dated in so long that I wouldn't even know where to begin. But as I kind of stole the floor from you about your one sentence thing, are you okay if I go with my next like first date story?
Of course.
All right, so we didn't take nearly as long to go through these as I was expecting, so we'll have to try and figure out something else to fill the rest of the time with.
My next one is a long one, so don't worry.
Okay, good, perfect. This one, because I only looked up like all of the long ones were like, this is too long, and I'm losing interest. So if I'm losing interest, I'm not going to be able to talk about it. So I was like, you know what, I'll just do two, because hopefully you'll make up the balance. Because I wanted to share my own personal first date, like terrible situation. And I talked to Courtney about it yesterday. So she's already heard it ish, but like enough to know like the story. So I'm not going to get shanked in my sleep tonight. So it was like, I'm pretty sure it was like junior year, maybe. I think it had to have been junior. It might have been sophomore year. But I went to go like ask this girl out who like in junior high was the girl that like elementary school style like hit you and like would just like do dumb stuff like when she had a crush on you. So like legit was the girl that would like walk down the hallway and just like blast me in the nuts for no reason. And it's like, dude. And at that time, it was like, this is not something that like I enjoy. Please stop doing it.
Already
But
not a fan, Matt.
right, exactly.
Keep going. Keep going.
And like she full on like running, like shoulder blocked me into a locker. My back was turned, didn't see it coming, wasn't prepared, like backpack on and just like full on like shoulder to my like offset shoulder. So like it was terrible. Kicked me from behind with boots on in the nuts. That was probably the worst. Drop to my knees. That was awful. But flash forward to later on, girls be looking pretty and dudes be dumb. So I reconnected somehow. I think she switched schools, and I don't remember how we ended up. We met at an event or something, and I was like, we should, hang out. We should go out and maybe go see a movie or something. So set the date. I didn't have a car because I was, like I said, I might have even been a freshman because I had a car sophomore year. But either way, borrowed my dad's Jeep, and I was super excited because it was like a nicer Jeep Cherokee, especially at the time. Like I said, this was like a million years ago because I'm old as dirt. But I go to pick her up. We're on our way back. This car is driving really slow on a 2-lane road. It's like speed limit's like 65. They're going like 35, but traffic isn't really clearing enough for me to pass on this 2-lane road. But I'm like, I'm in this Jeep that's got a little bit more power than like my normal expectation would be. I can make this pass. This is a passing zone, right? And she was like, yeah, we pass here all the time. So I was like, okay. So I jump over in the other lane. And as I jump over, the car that I thought was turning ends up committing back to like the normal lane of travel. So now I have like almost no time to pass this car. So it's almost a full on like head on collision, jerk the wheel back over to get in front of that car. She's like grabbing the dashboard. Is like, okay, cool. Then we get to the theater and we get ready to go in, and the tickets are not sold out, but it's just full enough that it was like, this is going to be an awkward trying to find like a spot to sit without people being like right next to you or in an awkward position. And we almost had to sit like one spot away from each other because that was the only like originally the only way that like the theater was set up, where there was no 2 seats together. It was like 1 seat here, 1 seat there, 1 seat here, a person, and then another seat. And I was like, why do people sit like that? So then finally I had to like go up and ask this old man if he could like scoot down one so that we could sit together. And he was like, I guess I could be closer to the aisle if I have to get up and you guys can sit on the inside. So now I'm sitting shoulder to shoulder with this old dude on one side and this girl on the other side, feeling all awkward because how am I supposed to like lean in and like talk to her or do anything? It was the best situation ever. And then movie ended and I was like, so do you want to do anything else? And she was like, nah, I got homework. Cool. Okay. Awesome. So I took her home, and then she was like, but you can, I have a birthday party coming up. If you should totally come to my birthday party, it'll be fun, this, that, and the other thing. So we follow up with going to her birthday party, and she's got all her friends there, people I don't really know. And I'm sitting in their house with a bunch of people I don't know. And she's off like gallivanting, talking to some other dude. And I was like, do I leave? Do I not leave? Do I leave? Do I not leave? And her mom comes and sits next to me, and she was like, I like you. And I was like, okay, this is even more awkward now because I was trying to leave and now you're like pinning me in with a compliment. And she was like, it takes a really, really strong guy to be able to come to a party where you don't know anybody and stay even though she's not paying you any attention. That's bravery. You're a good one. I like you. And I was just like, thanks. And then she kind of looked up at the like where like there was a 2-story house, so she looks up to where like the laughter's coming from, and she's like, I'm kind of upset, or I'm kind of disappointed in her right now for the way that she's treating you. but I just wanted to let you know that like it's a lot. It shows a lot that you're still sitting here. And then I was like, okay, bye. Like I'm out. I don't want to.
Matt.
So yeah, gotta love it, right? Gotta
Matt.
love it.
Matt.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yep. It was crazy.
So my fun thing, what I try to instill in people that have these awful first date experiences, or even myself, when you try to find the method behind the madness of why the fuck you go through these insane experiences with people of the opposite sex or whatever you're into, what conviction did you set about your ideal mate, your ideal life partner when you go through these experiences? Because I try to tell people that go through shitty relationships, shitty first dates, you have to, it sounds like a cliche. As soon as I say it, everybody's going to roll their eyes. You have to kiss a couple frogs to find your prince, right? So when you go through these shitty experiences or these toxic old relationships, what conviction did you set about your ideal partner? What did you find out about somebody that, or let me take a second. What did you decide that was a red flag in somebody else moving forward from that experience, where you're like, if I see this again, not messing with it? Or like, if this is a green flag versus a red flag, or, you know, those kinds of things. You have to go through these shitty relationships and these shitty experiences to build your convictions of, let me go through the motions and go through these relationships and be treated like shit, and let me be treated like I'm lesser than, for me to decide this is exactly not what I want in my future teammate and partner for the rest of my life. And when you find someone and you make that long-term decision of, you are my teammate for life, it is you versus the fucking world with this person. Okay. My husband and I, we have this saying where there's been so many iterations of our relationship and so many iterations of fuckery, as the kids call it, that we have to go through. It is literally our family saying to one another, where when we're going through this shit, we just make eye contact with each other and we look at each other and we say, if we can get through this, we can get through anything. There have been at least 8 or 9 times in our relationship that we've gone through unprecedented times of having to look at each other and say that to each other. Most recently, the last couple times when my dad died and I was completely lost and we're just totally thrown into the shit and we have no idea what's going on. And then a month later, surprise, I'm pregnant with our second kid, who is wonderful. Wouldn't change it for the world. But we keep going through these iterations of, if we can get through this, we can get through anything. And that's a teammate. That's your partner. That's who you want to live your life with, as going through, for better, for worse. Also another marriage cliche, right? So, original question. When you went through that experience, what is the specific conviction that you set about, this is not what I want in my future teammate that I want to raise children with?
So we have a differing of opinion and like fundamentally there. So what I will say is, I never cared about that. I wanted to hang out with people I thought were fun. I wanted to hang out with people who, like, at this point in time in my life, you seem like somebody I want to be around. I wasn't ever in a, like, this is going to be my partner for life. I never really had that. And ironically enough, like, having a conversation with Courtney, just like while we were working together, was the first time that I ever even like thought about, like, damn, I could marry you. Like you are somebody that I could see myself with, like in a different way, different context, because I just do. And I used to make the joke, I knew that I was going to be able to marry Courtney because she was the first girl that I could sit around. And this is really a terrible joke now, different time. But I was like, I never felt like I wanted to just like punch her in the face and say, shut up and leave me alone. And, and people used to look at me like, well, that's good though. And I was like, yeah, I mean, it just becomes one of those situations where like, I don't know if it's like the guy girl thing. Like for me, it was never about like looking for like a life partner or looking for, a teammate when I was dating, especially like back then. I was so young that like, I just was like, this girl is pretty and like fun and makes me laugh. Like that's the like the thing of it. It wasn't until like years later where I was like, man, I don't want to feel like I don't matter or I'm not important, because before then, like whatever. But also I've dated Courtney since I was like 18, 19, so I wasn't very old when like I didn't have that like kiss a couple frogs kind of situation, because I was so young when we met and got married. So does that answer your question, I guess?
It does. In our famous, what we love Matt for, which is his famous fence sitting.
Yeah, like I said, it's just a different, like I never thought about it that way, and I never.
You keep it
like,
real though, right? And maybe it's just a different experience that maybe you and I had during our whole like dating pool, dating Jane thing. Literally the boyfriend that I had in college that my dad loved the most was a cop, which my dad was a cop. He was a federal agent, loved cops, loved all of the things, kept cracking jokes after we broke up of how, oh, well, you let the one that I actually liked get away kind of thing. I never wanted to break his illusion of how great this guy was. Trauma response, probably, with bringing to light how abusive he was to me. And I had one bad experience and decided I'm not going to date cops.
yeah.
So I don't know, I feel like it's trying to find a justification or a like method behind the madness of going through these experiences. There has to be a reason why we go through shit.
Mm-hmm.
Why we have to kiss all these frogs before we find a right partner for us. I feel like it's something I wish that people would speak more openly about, to be quite frank. I feel like it's something that I would have probably saved a lot of grief for myself if I would have found somebody that was having an open conversation about stuff like this with me. Maybe part of it is just my upbringing, but I don't know. It's a really interesting thing to be at this point. Maybe I'm not going to try and speak on your behalf, but when you're in a long-term relationship and you have the gift of hindsight, when you can sit back and say, these relationships didn't work out for this reason, or I found my partner because that's who was meant for me to spend forever with, that kind of thing. I feel like there's a reason why you have to go through shitty relationships before you find the actual one. And finding your justification for dealing with those shitty breakups or the people that treat you wrong or all of those things. If you don't learn a lesson about what you don't want in a partner after you deal with all of those experiences, it kind of feels like, to me personally, if I would have gone through all of those shitty experiences and I wouldn't have set a conviction about what I did want in a partner, it would be super easy for me to be like, that was wasted time.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I would agree with what you're saying, and I think that probably, like, very much is something that should be an open conversation. Like, the relationships look like this, and you can learn from it instead of, harboring like the negative side of it. I think that is definitely a conversation that should be more had. But for me, it's kind of interesting, and I don't know if it's because of like the family dynamic I had or what, but like I honestly didn't care, and I never really like either I was like dating somebody or I was single. I was fine by myself. I didn't really care. I'm still kind of that way where it's like, you know, I I'm independent, and if I'm alone, I'm gonna figure it out. Like, worry more about yourself than worry about me, because like at the end of the day, like I'm not gonna go hungry. I'm not gonna be incapable. So when it came to relationships, I honestly, like, I didn't date a lot. I didn't care to date a lot. Like, it wasn't a thing. And my worst relationship that I can like 100% say was like the worst relationship wasn't even really that a relationship, because it was the girl that I was trying to talk to before me and Courtney got together. So like she made everybody like hate me. It was the worst summer I probably had in my entire life. That was probably my first experience with grief. I'd lost a cousin who, suddenly passed away and was only like, a few years older than me. So it wasn't like somebody that like I expected to lose. And, I was trying to deal with that while also having, a bunch of people that I thought had my back not have my back. So it's like, yeah, cool, whatever. But ultimately, like, the thing that I took away from it was like, I don't need to be in a relationship. Relationships don't define me. And I wasn't in relationships that like ever had it like, I can't think of a relationship that I was in that was like super toxic for one reason or another, or a problem for one reason or another. They like, they just were relationships. And did I learn stuff from them? Absolutely. But wasn't a ton. It wasn't, this, that, or, whatever. And I think that side of the coin often doesn't get talked about. Is not every relationship that ends has to end because of negativity or toxic or, whatever. Sometimes they just end because they end, and that's fine too. You can still take those and learn something and be like, this quality was something that I liked, and this quality was something that I don't like. So maybe, the next person that I date is able to have more of these conversations, or likes my hobbies, or, doesn't tell me to not eat the spicy food that I want to eat because, I'm gonna have an upset stomach, but also I love that fucking spicy food. So, you know what I mean? Like, there's a ton of variant in that, and I don't want to split hairs, but like, the dynamics of every relationship are so unique, and why they end, that like, two conversations could change a relationship from ending negatively to ending like amicably. And I think that's just kind of the way it goes. I don't know, it's weird.
I have never had a relationship that's like ended amicably. I have a really close loved one that I adore the shit out of, who did have a relationship that like ended amicably. And she was like, I just feel so guilty because there was nothing wrong with this person, but I still felt like I needed to not do this to myself and to him. And it is relevant to your point, because it's the only real life experience that I have where it's like, just because it didn't work out, it doesn't mean that something is wrong with you or them. You have outgrown that relationship, or you needed something different, or they needed something different. Like, something doesn't have to be like foundationally wrong with that person for your relationship to not be able to work. And that is a whole other experience that, I'm very open with my experience about grief and loss and everything with my dead parents. LOL. Whatever. It's a whole other thing where you're like grieving this thing where I've had a recent revelation of, you know, anything that disrupts your normal pattern or your normal definition of life, you're grieving, right? So even if it's something or it's a relationship that ends on amicable terms with somebody else, and there's nothing distinctually or articulately wrong with this other person, but you know, I have so much respect for people that end things even though it's still comfortable, because it's so brave to seek that out and change your definition of normal life because you know that you're called to something bigger and better. And also very very selfless of you to do that for the other person who very easily could continue on in that definition of normal or that like pattern of comfortability and be like, oh, well, you know, this is just how things have been for the last couple of years. This is how things are always going to be. So to put yourself out there and be like, I feel called to something different. There's nothing wrong with you. You didn't wrong me. You know, we can end things and try to be amicable about it. I think it takes a great sense of bravery and honesty with yourself that not a lot of people are super comfortable with, to be able to put yourself out there and be like, there's nothing that I can really say that's like toxic or wrong about this relationship. I just feel like there's something better out there for me, or like different out there for me that might be a better match. So
Yeah.
I have one cousin of mine that has done that before, and I'm very thankful and blessed that I'm somebody that she's been like comfortable like explaining that to, because we have the type of relationship where I can ask her those types of questions and she's like, I feel like I'm wrong, or I feel like I'm like something's wrong with me for ending this, even though it wasn't anything that like he cheated on me or like we just like fell out of love with each other. It was just like, this is comfortable. We probably could continue in this, but I think it takes a great sense of bravery and honesty with yourself to not want to settle for mediocrity, especially in your relationships. If it's somebody that you're choosing to spend the rest of your life with and then be your teammate for life, that's really fucking brave, in my opinion, to be able to be like, something else out there is calling to me. And you know, you may not have cheated on me, and I may not have walked in on your bedroom with you on a Sunday morning before fucking church with a different another naked girl in your bed, but I still owe it to myself and owe it to you to be able to cut this thing off, and both of us be able to find something that's not mediocrity, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
What do I know, though? I'm just an idiot with internet access, Matt.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like I said, I think there's a lot to relationships and dating and things like that. So by no means is there a one size fits all. And I think that's the conversation that needs to happen, is that there isn't a one size fits all. And the more open people are, especially like, you know, if for us who have kids, being open about those experiences to them and not being like, your mom's the only girl I ever loved, is stupid. And that's going to create a false sense of that's how it works, because that's not how it works. So, you know, having those conversations is important, to be open. And like I said, I grew up hearing stories like that from my dad and from my mom, and watching them be, you know, on again, off again. And like that relationships can just be separate and then be okay and figuring it out. So like, I don't know if I just grew up seeing that. So I didn't ever have the like thought process that like, you find your mate, you stick with them. We're penguins forever. We're lobsters forever. So, you know, that's
another Friends reference. Who knew you could shove so many in one fucking episode, Matt? I really appreciate it.
Gotta try. But yeah. I stole some time from you, so you didn't get to your last one. But do you have a That's What She Said?
I sure the hell do, Matt. Steps on soapbox. Friends, family, loved ones of the Homesroom podcast, homies that we love and adore so deeply. I want to be real with you guys. So before I met my husband, I was single for about 2 years, which was very out of routine for me. I had the toxic relationship that I alluded to from high school, naked girl from church, the whole thing. I also, so after I broke up with him, down and dirty timeline of my love life, because we're an open book here at Homesroom and fuck it, you know, if somebody can learn from my mistakes, we may as well. I broke up with him when I left for college. I was single for probably about 8 months. And then I had what I call the summer of boyfriends, where in a period of 3 months, I had 3 different boyfriends. The first one being the cop that I alluded to earlier. The second one was a mutual friend of one of my best friends. She got married that summer, and I felt pressure to, you know, get into a relationship. And he was a groomsman in the wedding, and it didn't work out, obviously. So that was the second boyfriend of the second month of the summer of boyfriends. The third boyfriend from the third month of the summer of boyfriends was a full tattooed drummer in a hardcore band who I had a long-term, deep-seated crush from high school. I feel like everybody has one of those exes or like one of those people that they just like keep going back to. That was mine for me. So we finally officially dated for about a month. We broke it off, i.e., he broke up with me. And I made the solid decision that I was just not ready to be in a relationship. So from that third boyfriend of my third month of the summer of boyfriends, I was single for about 2 years before I met my now husband. All of this to say that it took 2 years of me being single and me learning how to just enjoy life being alone for me to learn that you have to be happy and comfortable being by yourself before you are ever going to be ready to jump into a relationship with somebody long term. And I don't know if that sounds pessimistic or maybe jaded or whatever, but it wasn't until I was secure in the idea that I could exist by myself, I could exist in singlehood by myself and not have my core values and my core, like my immediate emotions or feelings about how I was doing that day rooted in how another person or another human acknowledged me for that day or did not respond to my text in a certain time period and all of those things. For me to finally be secure and comfortable with finally setting down roots and finding somebody that I wanted to spend forever with. I think in today's day and age, relationships and dating are so different than anything that I experienced. But I think one thing that hasn't changed is knowing that at the end of the day, if worst case scenario, you are still alone and by yourself, if you have enough security and safety in who you are as a person, that you don't need another human being to rely on for your emotional health, your spiritual health, your confidence as a human, right? That all of these things stem from who you are to your core. You are going to be a much better partner to someone if you have all of those things ironed out first before you try to figure those things out in the context of a relationship. When you are by yourself and you're single and you have just yourself to count on, while you are setting all of these convictions about who you are as a person, you are that much stronger for your future partner, because your sense of self and your sense of stability is not rooted on the subjective experience of another human being. It is, I know, worst case scenario, if shit hits the fan and I am by myself at the end of the day, I will survive this. I got me. I can do this. The sense of self-worth and confidence that comes from you having that basic understanding of yourself as a person is so rewarding, because that means that when you do meet that person and you do meet that teammate and that partner that you want to take that dive with, you're that much more secure in yourself, and you're that much more secure in who you are as a person, where that's less bandwidth that you have to figure yourself out and give that bandwidth fully to that relationship and your teammate. I don't say partner. I don't say husband. I don't say baby daddy. Sometimes I say baby daddy if I want to be a little asshole. But he is my teammate. When you have someone who is an equal partner, who knows what to expect from you day in and day out, it is a whole other level of comfortability. It is a whole other level of security. And as we're going through life and we're going through these relationships in adulthood, the level of security that you get from just knowing, from a foundational assumption that you two are great together, but you're also great by yourself, you got you, right, is just a wonderful thing. Finding your value in another human being is not setting yourself up for success. Humans are flawed. We are terrible, speaking as a social scientist for a living, we are terrible test subjects. We fuck, we fight, we kill each other, all of these other things. But knowing that you have you and your value of yourself as a person does not come from the subjective experience of another person based on their mood for that minute, that day, that hour, is so superior and just above and beyond. It is setting yourself up, your future kids, and your future partner up for success by knowing that you are secure in who you are outside of you merged with another person first. So I will also say that is my experience. I did not feel like I was ready for a long-term relationship until I went through all of that strife and the summer of boyfriends and the 2 years of emotional growth and the 2 years of feeling lonely and the 2 years of feeling like I was so behind the curve, that everybody else was in these long-term relationships and I just was so flawed because I didn't have any interest in finding somebody that was ready for me to be a long-term partner, whatever the fuck. You are setting yourself and your future partner and teammate up for success when you are secure in who you are as a person outside of any relationship. And Matt, that's what she said.
There you go.
Let me step off from my soapbox.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was our Valentine's Day episode. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you enjoy your partner and your teammate, whatever you got. Yeah, join us again next time where
we adore you. We will see you soon. Bye, homies.
The bell is about to ring. If you want to drop us a voice message or simply ask a question, you can do that by clicking the link in the show notes below. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review. It helps more people find us. Theme music by Kinsey. More music available on Spotify. Remember, every day is a class. Go learn something.